Welcome to the Good News Only radio show where you only hear good things about good people. My name is Tanya MacIntyre, and as you may have guessed from the name of the program, I am passionate about positive media. And I'm passionate about positive media for a very good reason, because I spent a very long time in mainstream media. I was a broadcast journalist on radio and television for 22 years. Yes, 22 years it took me to have my aha moment that there is an agenda of mainstream media, and that agenda is to perpetuate what I like to call the FUD factor: fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And when people are frozen in fear, uncertainty, and doubt, then they're more likely to go out and buy something to feel better, or perhaps even more often than not, take something to feel better. One of my heroes, Brené Brown, she's a famed researcher and best known probably for her best-selling books and her TED Talk. And she has done extensive research to find that we are now considered the most stressed, depressed, overweight, over-medicated population in history. So I think that says a lot about our addictions to advertising and mainstream media. And I always like to tell people when they are doubtful about my statements of this FUD factor and how powerful it is. I have a nephew who is living with Williams syndrome. Williams syndrome is a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects him mentally and physically. So he will be operating, he's 29 biologically this year, and he operates mentally at around 5 to 7 years old. So my nephew Tyler got an iPad for Christmas, and he was very excited because he loves to surf YouTube and watch YouTube videos. And anyone who has been on YouTube lately knows that you have to, more often than not, opt out of a commercial after 5 seconds. You have to skip the ad, press that little button. But you'll notice now, more often than not, that when you do go on to YouTube, you actually have to sit through that 30-second advertising to see your chosen video. So after just 1 hour of surfing YouTube, Tyler came back into the living room to announce that he had to lose weight and remove all the hair from his chest. So that is the power of mainstream media advertising. Those are the messages that our children are getting. And those are the messages, I think, that keep telling us that we are inferior until we buy something or take something to feel better. So my passion is to spread all the goodness in the world, because I know from my 22 years in mainstream media that there are far more good things going on in the world than bad. And there are far more good people in the world than bad. And I have one of those good people, as always, joining me on this edition of the Good News Only radio show. Now, this is also the inaugural video segment as well. We're doing video for the first time on the Good News Only radio show. And we are recording this on New Year's Day, January 1st, 2018. I normally don't like to date my programs because I'm not sure when they will air live, and not sure because they live on in perpetuity on podcasts. So you could be listening to this years from now. And thank you for sticking with me that long. So Nick Pereira is with us. Nick Pereira is founder of the Freedompreneurs Club, and he's also my business coach. Nick has joined us all the way from New Brunswick, a province in Canada. We are now an hour west of Toronto in a little town, Kitchener, Ontario. That's where I live. Nick, thank you for joining us on the Good News Only radio show.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me and for spreading good news.
Yeah.
That's an amazing thing.
Isn't it fantastic? And thanks for encouraging me to do this by video. And I know that you're kind of hidden behind the microphone there a little bit, so I apologize for that. Technical abilities are not my strong point. So Nick, I want to talk to you about a few things. I want to talk about mainstream media and the effect it has on society. But first I want to talk about how we, I think, ingest messages differently as male and female. I know as a female, I was made to feel inferior by advertising because I was comparing myself to images I was seeing and messages that we had to weigh a certain amount and look a certain way and have our makeup and hair a certain way. So I'm wondering how those messages differ for you as a man growing up, being subjected to those same messages.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think it works in the same way. I think that men, and I can only take from my own experience, that I think that women are more targeted in mainstream media, more targeted on the way you look, on the way that you appear. And I think that it affects a man because then as young, as you mentioned, your nephew, right, with a young mindset, and as we're growing up, then we're taught also that that is the way a woman should be, right? So in ways, while it's affecting both of us. And so as a man, we adjust, we take in the media from a male's perspective, and if the media is saying a woman should be this way, then we fall into that line of thinking, well, this is the way a woman should be.
So it kind of sets up your expectations for this is how a woman should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're taught from the ages of 0 to 8, roughly, especially here in North America, we are just absorbing everything. We don't have discernment. We can't say that is wrong, that is right, or I agree with that, or I disagree with that. At that age, there is no agreeing or disagreeing. They're simply just absorbing. And so if society is saying this is the way that it is, and that's shown through our advertising, through relationships we're observing, and let's be honest, much of it is coming from television and commercials. That's where most of, especially in this day and age, most of the young people's attentions are. And so they're whether male or female, our ideas or beliefs about the way the world should work are being formulated.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So here we are on New Year's Day 2018. And of course, everybody is talking about New Year's resolutions, something that I gave up a long, long time ago. And I'm wondering where you stand on that whole idea of making resolutions.
Yeah, I don't do resolutions either as well, mainly because, so from my perspective, New Year's is an arbitrary time of year. I think it has a nice feel around it. I like the idea that people are saying, hey, you know what, it's a nice time to check in and to say, hey, how did the year go and how does next year go? But what is the reality between yesterday and today? Not much, other than we've chosen it to be that way. So I think that, the resolution thing, it's also a media hype. A lot of it is used to get out and sell programs and sell weight loss things and sell pills and things. And again, it's created by hype. And, media has this way of creating this pack mentality. We have to feel like we have to join in. Everybody's joining the weight loss program. I've got to join it too. Everybody's looking a certain way. I have to look that way too. And, you mentioned the Freedompreneurs Club, and freedom being the key word there. To be free, you have to be individual. You have to be free of the collective consciousness and allow people to be themselves so that you can be yourself.
I love that term, collective consciousness, because it's very powerful. And I think there's definitely a shift. I was tempted to actually write a blog, and we were talking about this over the Christmas holidays, because I don't subject myself to the messages from mainstream media, but I don't live with my head in the sand either, like a lot of people suggest, that by not exposing myself to mainstream media messages, then I am uninformed. Well, I'm on the same page with, there was a quote by, I don't know if it was Denzel Washington. He went on, because he's been dragged over the coals by mainstream media. And he said, if you don't read a newspaper, then yes, perhaps you are uninformed. If you do read a newspaper, however, you are misinformed. And that's kind of where I am, because I know for a fact that what we're being fed by mainstream media is an agenda to keep us frozen in fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So I like to encourage everybody to just be the gatekeeper of your mind, right? Just be aware of what you're absorbing and filter out the messages that are not serving you.
Yes.
Because what Trump is doing south of the border, how does that really affect me? Well, it might affect me from an economic standpoint. Consciously, I wanted to write a blog, actually, to say, I love Trump. And my husband said, oh, no, you can't do that. People will be outraged. And I said, well, wait. I said, hear me out here. That is the message we need to be spreading to Mr. Trump, President Trump, because he is a very unhealthy and ill man, okay? He's coming from a really bad place. He needs all the positive energy we can give him. That's what we need to be sending President Trump south of the border, is all of our love and our empathy. that he is going to get better.
Yeah.
That this experience is in our lives for a reason, including his, and we need to send all the positivity we can his way, and all the love and acceptance, and embrace him for everything he is. Because if we don't do that, what are we doing? The law of attraction philosophy tells us that everything we give our attention, energy, and focus to grows. So if we keep giving attention, energy, and focus to the big a-hole
Right.
that's running the country in America, then what are we going to get? We're going to get more of that behavior. That's my belief, at least. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know what? I'll be honest. I'm like you. I don't really plug into mainstream media. And after President Trump was elected, I knew he was elected, and I really haven't stayed in much touch. I know that figures in political positions, because of the nature of politics, politics lives on a level of consciousness where you are debating over morality. So it's not the ultimate truth. Politics is a way that we debate over what I feel is right and you may feel is wrong. So it really comes from a place of feeling. So anybody in a political position is going to be divisive in some way, just because that's the nature of politics.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the nature of debate and the nature of getting things done in a democratic society. So I think that ultimately, from a human perspective, I believe it was the Dalai Lama who had said, I'm good friends with George Bush. I don't necessarily like everything he's doing, but he's my friend. You know, I like him on a personal level. And I think that we have to be reminded that of what you're saying here, of, you know, regardless of agree or disagree, can we go above our emotions on topics and look at it from a human perspective and say, look, we're all human. Donald Trump is human. He puts on his pants like everybody else puts on his pants in the morning.
And we're all connected.
That's right, and we're all connected, and it, you know, what you're saying is absolutely true. Of whatever our thoughts and feelings are towards any particular person, we're inherently also seeing that in ourselves. We're bringing that into the world, and so we should be conscious of that. And at the same time, I think that, you know, the less that you even plug into it, the better.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, you mentioned, yes, it may affect here or there. But, you know, I've asked this question to people. I said, day to day, on your day-to-day life, has the political agenda really shifted your day-to-day life?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
No. You know, maybe you have to pay some more taxes with one party and another with less party, and you get some perks this way and some perks that way. But the overall shift of a person's day-to-day life, and I know this is not true for everyone, because some people are directly affected by...
If you're in the top 1% of the population.
That's right, yeah. And that's who's fighting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Right? And who's fighting is the top 1% who are, I want it this way, I want it that way, and for them it's going to change things. But for us everyday people...
The minions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know, it's really not changing. It's not really changing anything. But what it does do is it keeps us divided. Mm-hmm. It keeps us fighting each other rather than binding together and saying, hey, what is the reality of our situation? The other thing, too, is I encourage people not to wait for governments to make changes. You know, sometimes there's this mentality of, oh, well, the government will come in and set up a program. Let's stop waiting for the government to do things. We're people, we can set up a program. If you see something in your community that's required or needed, go ahead, set it up, do it. Don't wait for the government to do it. We'll be waiting a long time.
Exactly. We are responsible for our own existence, and a lot of that comes with our mindset, which is why I'm so passionate about people being the gatekeepers of their mind and keeping your thoughts as positive as possible. I'm not suggesting you be a Pollyanna and live with your head in the sand, as some suggest, just by being positive, that I'm criticized for being that way. And again, it's that divide and conquer mentality. You've got to be one way to be accepted in society, and if you don't kind of follow that suit, then you're criticized. And we all know that there is no shortage of criticism in the world. So with you and your background, how did you evolve with being an entrepreneur? Because it's not an easy road to take. There's a lot of criticism along that way. Did you have a lot of naysayers in your life saying to to you, Nick, what are you doing? Go get a job.
Yeah. Always, right? There's always that. I think more than anything, we do it to ourselves. Maybe someone gives us a funny look and we think, oh, geez, yeah, I think they're judging me. So I don't know how much of the judgments have come actually from outside of myself or from myself just going, am I crazy? What am I doing? Over time, that gets easier and easier. And, time, they say time reveals all, right? Time reveals the truth. And so I think at the beginning, there was a lot of skepticism, and you're a coach, you're a trainer. Oh, how does that work? Especially with what I do, helping people to grow their business online, which is so brand new to most people, but it's the future. Mm-hmm. So anybody who can see that the online world is presenting an opportunity to get out of mainstream media, to get out of corporate structures, to get out of the old structures, the online world is presenting an opportunity to do that. And anybody who can see that and wants and desires more freedom in their life, it's just a natural path to take. So I think there's some skepticism at first, like we do in anything. Anytime you make a change in your life where you're going to go away from the pack, you're going to do something different, it's natural for people to want to look out for you. And in a way of looking out for you, they try to protect you. And, good intentions, or what's that saying? Good intentions are the pathway to hell, or something like this, yes. Or this type of thing. And I think
road
that's
to hell is
true.
paved with good intentions.
That's it. Yeah, that's exactly the road to hell. So I think that a lot of people have good intentions. They bring up skepticism to try to protect you if you know you. The other thing too is that I talked about this political consciousness, or this what I'm going to call emotional consciousness. So where most people live is in a consciousness where their emotions dictate their opinions, right? And I encourage people to try to move above your emotions to what we'll call an intelligence consciousness, meaning this is when someone hits you on the cheek and you turn the other way. What is your emotion when someone hits you, or whether that's physically or verbally, right? Mm-hmm. What is generally the emotional response is to hit back.
You want to hit back.
Yeah, you want to defend.
Respond.
You want to respond. You want to defend. Intelligence consciousness is the ability to feel your body wanting to defend, but being able to override it. This is a different level of operation for most human beings. Most human beings are operating at a level where their body is dictating the show, meaning there's 4 things that the body wants to do: eat, sleep, defend, and mate. That's it. That's right. This is what, and if you could compare it to like an animal, this is what an animal does, because an animal's consciousness lives completely in the body. And so for us human beings, we have the potential to go above the body, meaning we can go above just surviving. So the animal can survive, we can survive. And we're going to do the same 4 things. We're going to eat, we're going to sleep, we're going to defend, and we're going to mate. But it looks a little bit different. We may not eat something. We may not hunt our food anymore and eat each other or something. Yeah, that's right, right? But we're gonna sit at a table maybe and use a knife and fork or chopsticks or something like this, right? Mm-hmm. So it looks a little bit more sophisticated, but the actual activity is the same. Mm-hmm. So the next sort of raise in consciousness that you'll see in people is emotional consciousness. This is where politics lives. This is where morality lives. And there's nothing wrong with politics or morality. It's based upon opinion. It's still not the absolute truth.
Oh, you know what? The best definition of truth I've ever heard, Nick, and I encourage everyone to write this down, and any time you find yourself embroiled in unproductive dialogues, I just want you to reflect on this. Truth is a fundamental reality defined by a person's perceived experience.
That's right.
Because it's all perception.
Because it's perception. And that's where politics comes into play. And so you'll find many people get rallied up into the political conversation. And the reason so many people get rallied up into the political conversation is because they are making their decisions based upon their emotions, on what they feel is right and what they feel is wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult to people to come above this platform unless you take up some kind of spiritual or meditation practice that allows you to begin to even release the dualities of right or wrong. Now, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have right or wrong, right? These are a function of society. But it's not the absolute truth, because I can feel one thing is wrong, and I could be like passionately that is wrong. What that person did is wrong, and they deserve to go to jail. And another person, because they have a different perception of the situation, can say, no, that person was right. They it was necessary that they did that action. And me and you will fight all day about it. So in the nature of politics, that is going to happen. So what we got to do is we have to move above that and realize, accept that that's part of it. Accept that disagreement is part of the evolutionary process, so that we can find ways to compromise and learn. And that would be the platform of intelligence consciousness, where you can go above your emotions. Mm-hmm. And to achieve that, you got to take on some meditation practice.
Ah, yes, meditation. Everybody I talk to about meditation extols the virtues of how it has changed their life. Now, I know, Nick, that you practice in the... Now, see, forgive me for my illiteracy with this. So, Hare Krishna, when I think of Hare Krishna, I immediately go to George Harrison, because, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he kind of brought it all kind of to the forefront, because I think our perceptions of Hare Krishna up until that point were the robed, bald-headed people who hung around at the airports.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then George Harrison kind of brought it into kind of a new evolution with the Maharishi
Mm-hmm.
and meditation and the importance of centering yourself and going within. How did you evolve and become a follower of Krishna? Because Krishna is really kind of the equivalent to the Christians of Jesus, right? It's the Eastern philosophy, culture, supreme being. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Krishna is in the philosophy as presented in the Bhagavad Gita, which means Song of God, is presented like an avatar, so a descendant. So God descends himself, just like in the story of Jesus. In fact, if you know the story of Jesus and you know the story of Krishna, you'll find tons of similarities, and you'll find that they both spread the same message, as all religions and spiritual practices do. They're all ultimately paths to lead to the same place, which is God or Krishna or Allah or Jehovah or whatever name you give it. All traditions, major traditions in the world, actually follow the same practice. Mm-hmm. They all, and in this age, this time period that we live in, it is recommended in all those traditions that mantra meditation or chanting the names of God be your meditation practice. It is not recommended that you try to do silent meditation or all of these other meditations that you're seeing. Nothing is wrong with these, but it is very difficult. It is said that the mind is harder to control than a flame in the wind. So if you can imagine a flame in the wind and how flickering it is, and it's always being taken off of its course, that's how difficult it is to control your mind in this age. And that's practical. You can just look out in the world and see that people are, I was riding the subway, as you said, I live out in New Brunswick, but I'm here in Toronto for the next few weeks, and I'm riding the subway, and I was taking count of the fact that there's zero conversation on the subway, and everybody's into their phone. So, you've got 200 people in a small place, and yet you could hear a pin drop.
Wow.
All right, and so, I was taking note of this thing. This is how distracted we are. And so you could just imagine the state of people's minds who are consistently engaged in some sort of...
Overstimulated, right?
Totally.
Totally.
Totally overstimulated, and from the time of birth. So for me personally, I ended up coming to Krishna consciousness, and Krishna and Christ consciousness and God consciousness, they all mean the same thing. So it's not to get caught up on the words or the traditions. Oh, that must be an Indian God,
right,
and that must be an American God. No, that's all material.
Well, I think it was Mother Teresa who said think of all religion as rivers coming and going to the same, coming from and going to the same ocean.
That's exactly it. And I've spent time, in Christianity, Buddhism, with the Hare Krishnas would fall under, to the outside person would fall under a Hindu practice. But it's called Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti means devotion. And yoga means union. So even the yoga that we're seeing here right now in the Western world, many people aren't understanding the philosophy. So they're going to the yoga studio and they're doing, wine and yoga. And first of all, if you're doing wine and yoga, you have to ask, like, is yoga really the going on here? No, what's going on there is stretching.
Right.
And exercise. And there's nothing wrong with this. Again, it's good to stretch and exercise and to do those yoga practice. But what the Hare Krishna movement is doing is it's installing the yogic philosophy. It is the philosophy under yoga, right? And that is what we're presenting. It's what the Freedompreneurs Club is presenting. It just doesn't use that language. But it's saying, here's yoga philosophy. And yoga means union, to align with the Supreme, whatever you call that Supreme. And you can chant, whether you chant Krishna or Allah or Jesus Christ, they all have the same potency. They all have the same end result because they are coming from the same place. And so meditation for me is mantra meditation.
So when you talk about mantras though, isn't Hari a mantra? Hari,
Yeah.
Hari.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna means all attractive.
Right.
Hari means energy or female, right? So you have the male Krishna and you have Hari, which is the female or energy of God. And then you have Rama, which means reservoir of pleasure. And when you're chanting, it's like a little prayer that you're saying, hey, how can I be in service to you? Because here's what's, from my perspective, here's what's missing in the world. It's really simple, actually. We are material in nature, which means material means disconnected from spiritual source. We are doing everything for our own pleasure. Why are you in a relationship? For your own pleasure. Why are you going to work? To get paid. Why do you go to the gym? To get the body. If you look at most people, everyone is living for the result. And very few people are living for the service of the activity or the service. And the soul, like salt is salty, is the nature of salt is to be salty. The nature of sugar is to be sweet. The nature of fire is to produce heat. The nature of your soul is to love. It is the activity of the soul. The activity of the soul is to serve.
To serve. And the Beatles had it right all along, Nick.
Totally, they did.
All we need is love.
All we need is love. And John Lennon was right when he said, we never have given it a try. He says, we've given everything else a try. We've given politics a try. We've given this organization, charity, this, all. We've given so many things a try. But when it comes down to the simplicity of life, it's like the human mind says, no, it can't be that simple. But the reality is that simple. It's actually, if you learn to love again, like a child loves, it has no judgment to anything. See, a child's just absorbing, goes with what they feel is good.
No judgments.
No judgments. Oh, that happened. They forget tomorrow. Like, you could argue with the child and 15 minutes later you could be playing with them again. And you see, because they're that easy and they're actually closest to reality of nature because they are in their soul. They are in Atma. They are still living in that way. And so that's the whole practice of mantra meditation, is how do I get back to the essence of who I am, my soul. And the nature of the soul is to serve. And serving means loving each other. And this ultimately becomes the message, right? This is what good news is all about. This is what the spiritual movement is all about. And that transcends all religion, all cultures, sexes, anything that divides us. Love transcends it, and it's why so many people just chalk it up as woo-woo.
Woo-woo.
Yeah, no, that's too
all
woo-woo.
that airy-fairy stuff.
Yeah, it can't be that simple, but life is simple.
So the Freedompreneurs Club, you help entrepreneurs generate more sales to become freedompreneurs. What does freedom mean to you in 30 seconds?
Okay, so there's 3 levels of freedom. Material freedom, which is where the club concentrates on at the initial point, which is learning how to grow a business and sell, because you got to be able to sell or promote your ideas so that you can create some material freedom for yourself. Second level is freedom of expression, meaning what is it that you love to do? You love to talk, you love to host, you love to spread good news. Great. How do we grow a business that allows you to live your passion, express yourself, and get paid to do it? Third level, spiritual freedom. Get down to who you are, spirit, soul, not the body, not the mind, and living from a place of service.
Wow. Nick Pereira, how can people connect with you?
go to search Coach Nick on Facebook. Is a great way to connect with me and reach out me from there. Or go to freedompreneurs.club and you can find me there.
Excellent. Nick Pereira, thanks so much for joining us on the Good News Only radio show. I am your perpetually positive pal, Tanya MacIntyre, and my wish for you is always to live well, laugh often, love always, and of course, stay positive and take the diet that really works, a media fast. You can get it at thegoodnewsonly.com.